How's it going, folks? Mark from Like-Minded Lunatics, and I'm coming at you with your Monday music matchup. And boy, I've got a special one today. I am so excited to bring this one to you. Before I get to that, let me remind you, hey, you enjoy the content you're seeing here on our channel, if you would please hit the subscribe button at the very bottom of your screen. Don't cost you nothing, and you'd be doing us a big, big favor. All right, so today on the matchup, we usually take two songs, put them head to head, or two versions of the same song, put them head to head, talk about the differences, talk about the similarities, and kind of talk about which one we like the best. So this is one I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. We're going to take Muddy Jesus. Now this comes off of Ian Moore's 1995 album, Modern Day Folklore. We're going to take that studio version and we're going to put it up against a live version that Ian performed in 2016 at Strange Brew here in Austin. Sadly, they have closed down now, but this was a live performance that he did. Now, I have loved this song since it came out. I loved it so much that the first time I heard it was on an Austin station. I was in Waco, driving north on 35. I knew I was about to get out of range of the Austin station. This song came on, pull over in the ditch, had to listen to the rest of it. And this was in the time before the internet, so I didn't know who it was. The DJ didn't tell me. So the next day I was at Sound Warehouse singing this song to the guy behind the counter so he could find me the CD. Now, Ian has started performing this a little bit different in his live performances, so I thought it would be cool to match them up. Now, to do this right, I really thought we should have an expert here to help us compare them. And who better to do that than Mr. Ian Moore himself? Ian, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Dude, I'm excited to try to just compare my own song to my own song.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. This is so exciting for me.
Right on.
Before we start, I kind of wanted to get your impression of a couple of things before we dive into both songs. So when I first heard this song, this was 95. I was just out of high school, about to start college. The song to me, when I heard it off of the Modern Day Folklore, was just a really tough Texas bluesy rocky song. And I really, really loved the aggression of it, especially the guitar portion. Obviously, you're known for your guitar. But then as I got older and I started hearing the live version, my interpretation of the song changed. And then in prepping for this conversation with you, looking into your background, my interpretation changed even more. So my question to you before we start this is, as an artist, how important do you think it is for the audience to know the artist's intention? So like when you wrote this song, how important is it for you as an artist that we understand your headspace, where you were at, or do you just hope the audience takes it on its own terms?
Well, kind of all of them. I think, when I do songwriting workshops and when I do my workshops, I'll actually go really deep into what I'm thinking because I'm trying to connect people to the process of writing. As a fan, what I tell people, other writers, is oftentimes leaving some space for a person's imagination to interpret it as you want is really an important part of songwriting, because if you try to connect everything to everything, then you're not giving your listener any credit. And then as a soul, because a big part of why I play music is wanting to connect to people and wanting to feel, when I was a kid, feeling this need that I couldn't get all this stuff inside of me out just through the normal means that we had. So music became a thing where I would feel like I would kind of reach out and try to see if people were really listening. And so in all of my records, I do a lot of stuff where I'll put little kind of things, little, I call them little breadcrumbs, like, so if the person's really interested, they can follow it way down. If they just want to listen to what they're hearing on the radio or on the record or whatever, that's fine, and so because that's how it is. If you think about it, like, you got some people that will love a song and they'll never even think about what it's about. And then you got other people that want to research and get into it. And so that's what's fun as an artist, is giving all those people different inlets. And if somebody just wants to groove with the tune and feel good about it, amen,
Sure. So something for everybody then, something for the for the obsessive person and something for the casual listener then.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite kind of music.
So when you wrote this song, and this was on your sophomore album, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So when you wrote this song, how much was it shaped by your ability to do things in the studio and stuff like that? Because there's a lot of interesting sounds in this. There's a lot of interesting, you've got Flaco Jimenez on this. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm so glad I did that.
and you're doing the sitar. We open with like, and we'll hear in a second. We open with like a truck sound and some dogs barking. How much of this composition was shaped by being able to utilize the engineering booth?
Yeah, I mean, that's that one of the things that you learn when you start recording is that, and you'll hear fans say this, like, "Oh, I saw them and they're great live, and the records don't do it justice," which is a pretty common thing. I mean, I've definitely had bands that I liked. Like I was a big Neville Brothers fan, and you'd go see them live, and you're like, "How are you going to ever capture that on a record, right?" But one of the things that you learn is that the studio is its own beast, and it's foolish to try to capture a live thing because you're never going to get it.
Sure.
You can try. I mean, there's some records that come pretty close, but nothing captures a live thing. So for me, like when we recorded this record, what I wanted to do was create almost like a little movie, and all those sounds kind of set that up.
So one of the things too that so trying to capture that sound is just futile, is what you're telling me. Is trying to create a different experience is probably what you shoot for.
Yeah, you know, to me, same deal. Like I was saying before, you know, you're just trying to get people in a mood. You're trying to create like a, you know, it's like a thing. Like if you have a dinner and it's just you and your lady, you know, you're gonna have a certain type of dinner. If you have a dinner, it's a bunch of your guy friends coming over to watch a football game or something. Totally different environment. So like, you know, they like this song, it was, well, first of all, I mean, this is another thing. Like when I did my first record, I had this whole concept of kind of that thing, like a What Muddy Jesus does, where there's like sounds, like almost like a Pink Floyd track, like where there's
Right.
all these things that pull you into the song. And it doesn't mean that the song has to be the super trippy tune. Once you get to the tune, it could be like a rock, it could be whatever. But whatever you put on it's almost like the frame of the picture. Whatever you put there, like, you know, that truck sound, the Flacco playing the accordion at the top, it really takes you to a place, right? It gets you a feeling. And then when that song comes in, your brain and your soul's already kind of primed for like the experience of the song. And then when it comes in real fierce, you're like, oh, all right, you know?
And I think that's a great segue. So what I'm going to do now, Ian, is share my screen with you, and let's just jump into it if that's
Sure.
okay with you.
Yeah, man.
But before I get to that, hang on just one second. You have got three shows that are coming up very, very soon here in Texas that I want to make sure that all of our viewers here in Texas know about. You're going to be at the Rail House in Kyle on December
Mhm.
2nd, Sam's Burger Joint in San Antonio on December 10th, and then on December 11th, you're going to be here at Stateside for the Christmas show.
Yeah.
And man, let me just tell you, my wife and I have been to the Christmas show like the last 2 years. It is my absolute favorite thing
Oh, cool.
of
Yeah.
of the season. I am
You-
so pumped about it.
Thank you, man. Well, you know, it's what I wanted to tell people that, you know, so for a lot of people, they were really confused with my shows because some people would come to like the acoustic show and they, you know, I'm not playing electric guitar. There's not a lot of solos. It's a totally different trip. And so what I've tried to do now is I mostly only do the acoustic show during the holidays, you know, because I kind of feel like everyone's kind of in that more introspective mood anyhow. And I don't know if you've seen the band shows lately, but the band shows are more intense than they've probably ever been. I mean, they're like, I've been looking at old videos of like the Ian Moore band, and like I'm a lot more intense now than I was when I was a kid. But it's a lot of the older material and the bluesy material and all that. And then when we go to the acoustic shows, the Christmas shows, it's a lot of that mid-period stuff from Luminaria, stuff from
Hmm.
Greengrass, focusing more on the songs, on the ensemble, on the voice. So even in those shows that we're playing, there's a Kyle show. There's another one. I actually haven't realized it's not on the website. There's a show in Kerrville, I think the
Oh wow.
next day. And then once we hit the acoustic show that next week, then that will be the different material, the
Gotcha.
more stuff that you're talking about.
Well, can I just tell you, when I was growing up, my great grandmother played piano like a lot of people from that generation. She had an old upright, and during the Christmas holidays, I would stay a lot with her, and she would have people come over and bring her pralines and stuff like that. You're from Texas, you know how that goes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And she would always have friends come over and just jam with her. Like she played boogie woogie on the piano, and
Oh,
she had a
cool.
friend, a fiddle player, and then there was another guy who was a guitar player. Your show reminds me of sitting in Granny's house
Oh
watching
yeah.
those friends play. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. You know what it was is that I wanted to do that because, you know, Bucka and I played together, and you know he played in the Ian Moore band for so long, and then we're best friends, and we're always like, oh, we should do a show here. And I mean, it just was going, the years were going by. One of our members, the George Reef, my old bass player, died. And we realized it's like, man, tomorrow better come today. So we just decided that every year around Christmas, we're going to get together. We're going to do a few shows. We're going to just do it like that, where we want it to just be like this real, we want it to be beautiful and kind of winsome and reflective, but we want it to feel like that. We want it to feel like we're hanging out in a house and y'all just happen to all show up.
That's how it feels as an audience member. It doesn't feel like Ian Moore, the guy in my head. It feels like hanging out at Granny's house. And I mean that in the best possible way.
No, I take it in the best way. Right on.
And the only thing that would make it better, Ian, is having Banjo come in and biting your arm as you're trying to play. Because watching the live stream and Banjo coming in and annoying you as you're playing, that was fantastic.
No, I love that stuff. You know, it reminds me of, I mean, I know we're doing a Muddy Jesus thing, but it reminds me, one of my favorite shows, I did a show in Santa Fe, and my dad was living there at that point. And, you know, as you can imagine, most of the time your family and touring don't mix because family's got to stay in one place. They can't really come on the road. But since it was Santa Fe and my dad was there, so the kid's grandpa was there, our Max, my older kid, shows up and comes to the gig. And Max had never seen me play live, but had seen me play a million times around the house. And so when I played around the house, he was pretty used to just climbing on top of me and talking to me. And so I'm playing this show in Santa Fe, and it's a sold out show. And there's, you know, it's a pretty nice kind of, not fancy, but, you know, it's an acoustic show. So kind of like probably an older crowd and everything. And Max gets up and just walks up on stage and starts talking to me. And the funny thing about the show is, I think for most people that were there, it was amazing. Like, they loved it because it was a real human show, and they're like getting to see somebody that they like as an artist, as a human being, which I like to see that. Had a couple of people that wanted their money back because they were like, I didn't pay to see this musician talk to their kid the whole time. I thought it was funny. I mean, I was like, you know, fine, give them their money back. But the funny thing of how people are, like, some people really, really want to have this super curated specific experience, and then other people are really like want the humanity. And so I try to lean into the humanity. That's really where I feel like where we all meet, whether you're sitting in the crowd or you're on stage. When as a musician, you lean into the humanity of it all, and you're presenting yourself in the realest version you can. I mean, look, when I show up and I'm doing my guitar set, I want it to be badass, and I want it to be sexy and all that stuff, because that's the vibe. That's what people are coming to see. And so that's what I'm going for. So you're not going to get as much of like, this is what I'm feeling this morning. I was a little sad today. I'm not going to do all that stuff because it's not right for the vibe. But if you see me in my acoustic show, you're getting a much less, I don't know what you know, like just down home. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a really important thing to talk about. And it's interesting maybe for your viewers to think about, like, what do they look for when they go to a show? What do they want?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, I want the humanity, so I appreciated all of that.
Right on, man. Cool.
All right, so I'll share the screen. We can jump into it.
Let's do it.
Got the sound turned on for you. And unless you have a huge objection, Ian, I'm going to drink a ice cold Tecate as we do this. Is that?
I have no objection at all, man. I wish I could, but I think I'd fall asleep if I did.
All right, so 1995, Muddy Jesus from your Modern Day Folklore album. Here we go.
Shack with the fat New Orleans junkie. charismatic cholo, so some say was born plain lucky. Across the streets of Juarez and in his low-cut Eldorado, fine commando, all slick hands, brash and bold bravado. Mother Mary said your time has come, for the river's wide but can be fought in one, for the very love of God and man. Oh, Jesus crossed the Rio Grande.
All right, so I'm going to pause it there, Ian. There's so much stuff about that first portion I have questions about. So that's Flaco Jimenez on the accordion. Huge personality in San Antonio. I teach at UTSA, and one of my colleagues knows him. That's very cool. How did you get him on the album?
I just asked him. Flaco, it was cool as Austin was a lot smaller back then, and Flaco and Doug and all this. I've been friends with a lot of San Antonio guys for a long time. And being a kid that was kind of into a lot of the roots music that a lot of my peers, my generation wasn't into. I mean, I had, I think it's always cool when you're an older musician and someone young is, kind of hip to where you're coming from. And Flaco is just cool, man, and I just said, hey, I told him what was going on. He thought it was cool. He was like, yeah, man.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And
came in.
You're on the sitar, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the sitar, it's funny, that's the first instrument I ever played, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not great at it or anything, but it's the first instrument I had when I was really young, and so I love those sounds, and to me, the sitar sounds very similar to like the guitar, especially with the wah-wah pedal. It goes wow, 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 it has that kind of very, very kind of vocal sound.
So one of the things that, at the beginning of this, I asked you kind of about your view on interpreting art and things like that. So the first time I heard this was before college. I just thought it was a badass balls to the wall rock song. Flat out, just that was pretty much the only thing that I thought of it. Then I went to Baylor, and they force you to take a ton of religion classes. Then I started looking at it from a different perspective. So, you're obviously referencing biblical, you're talking about Jesus and Mother Mary, and Judas is in there. And I started looking at it from a really different perspective. So one of the things that occurred to me is when you start off this song, you use an accordion from Mexico, you use a sitar from India, and you have kind of a bluesy guitar in there as well. You've got all of these components. And my literature brain immediately went, he's trying to create a global feel to discuss an archetypal story. That's immediately where I went to when I heard that opening, because it's so otherworldly to me.
Yeah.
And let's take a look now at your the set you did at Strange Brew, because you start off a lot different on this one.
close to Rio Grande.
So one of the things I love about that is that you seem to have slowed it down a little bit, but simultaneously made the guitar sound way more aggressive to me. It sounds more throaty and more, I don't know, more visceral, if that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you were writing this, is this one of those type of songs that came together very quickly, or is it one that you really spent a lot of time crafting?
I don't remember because it's a long time ago, but I'd imagine that it came relatively quickly. When I listened to the original, there's so many things that I remember. We had been touring quite a bit with ZZ Top at that point.
Right.
So I think a big part of like portraying a song from that angle, even though my song has a lot more kind of more philosophical than a typical ZZ Top tune, where it's more, they purposefully, I don't think, get super deep. It's more kind of different kind of trip. But I think presenting that tune like that had a lot to do with touring with them a lot, and just kind of that the nature of being a Texas artist and having that platform to present a tune like that, where you could actually have this pretty rockin', song, and then at the same time really get into kind of like a different vibe lyrically. And again, part of the goal was almost like reminded me, like, I'm a big Springsteen fan, and I remember when he made Born in the USA, and everybody was singing it and not realizing that in many ways it was a protest song and not this big jingoistic, it's not an anti-USA song, but it's a song kind of going, what does it really mean? It's what there's a lot of questions in it. And I think that that's an interesting place. I think if you present, like, you can't really write a protest song anymore because it doesn't have any power. The nature of protest music has really been kind of, I don't know, like, it's a different climate now. And so telling a narrative has a lot more power to actually make a social statement than writing a song going, this is bad, this is bad.
Right.
So that's kind of something that I think I probably started doing around that, on that second record. It's probably first time I ever did that. And it was pretty cool to me that Muddy Jesus was a top 10 national rock song that was talking about immigration. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It absolutely was. And it was, it's one of those things that growing up where I grew up on a dairy farm. So there were a lot of Hispanic workers there and things like that. I knew guys who had the name Jesus and stuff like that. And when I heard this song, it always kind of struck me as, is the Jesus in this song an actual second coming of a Christ, or is it an immigrant that we just, that by the end of it gets gunned down?
Well, that was kind of that's the way I presented it. I mean, the a lot of times with this song, like, I'll posit like the thing of like, the idea came from realizing that a lot of the opposition to immigration with Mexican Americans in Texas was from Christian people, which I thought that was a pretty interesting thing, because it's pretty fundamentally against the basic precept of Christianity, and then it was really interesting too, because, like you say, like, so many friends of mine, you grew up in Central Texas. I mean, Central Texas is built on the back of Mexican and Mexican American people, and anyone that's from Texas knows that. I mean, you don't. So it's just.
Well, I mean, where I was sitting was Mexico. Not that long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago. and I'm a big fan. It's interesting. I've always been a big fan of Texas history, and I've read so many books about. I mean, some like narrative fiction, like the Sun, the Higher book, H.L. Higher. That's a great book. And then all these books just about basically how, most of the Texas ranch land and the big ranch families were thieves, and I mean, most people that have power in the United States, like any power anywhere, you go back far enough, they stole it from someone. I mean, that's just how life worked back then. If you could get away with it, and you were either meaner or crasser or something, then they used to just Texas was almost all Mexico, and basically, the people came in, German people, some Spanish people, people that were, I guess, basically kind of American citizens, or in that weird nebulous land. And they just go, no, it's our land now, and they'd either kill the people or throw them back across to Mexico, and if anyone came back, you're dead. And
Right.
so that's something like, as a big ZZ Top fan, as a big fan of Texas culture, it was always kind of an interesting thing. So that was the thing that I kind of put out, and then so I kind of had this thing in my head, like, well, what if the second coming was Jesus as basically a illegal immigrant? What if? I mean, what if that were the second coming, and then he got killed before he could even come over to save mankind? I mean, it was just kind of, but I want to be really clear. This song is not necessarily written from that angle. Part to me of what's interesting about it is backing off from the initial idea and presenting it where maybe he's just an immigrant. Maybe it's not somebody that's, maybe this whole thing is this, because that to me is a more interesting presentation than being steadfast in the one narrative,
And I think that was one of the things that's been so fascinating to me about this song. I mean, this is one of those songs that you published this 26 years ago, and it rattles around in my head, and it has not stopped since I first heard it. And I think one of the reasons why is because of what you're describing. It can be interpreted in so many different ways. Like the first time I heard it, it's just a balls to the wall, cool story about a dude who gets gunned down. Yeah. Then I start thinking about it a little bit more. Is this a commentary on what would happen if the second coming actually happened and it happened across the border? And, all of that start just, rolling around in my head. Yeah. So, well, let's dive into the second verse if that's cool.
Yep.
With a group of high-powered federales, sat him down and formed their plan through a haze of culticates. Judas said, "Now, geez, I know you're prone to walk on water. If you swim downstream, there's a better chance that you'll make it across the border." Yeah. Mother Mary said, "Your time has come, for the river's wide, but can be four in one. For the very love of God and man."
One of the things that's interesting me about this, Ian, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on it, is that there's a lot of vocalization that you're doing there that obviously you can pretty much only kind of do in an engineering booth, laying tracks and stuff like that. It feels really almost like old school blues call and response type stuff. Like, how do you view that type of stuff when you're putting together a piece of music like this?
Well, I mean, again, like I said, I mean, I think I was kind of probably quoting a lot of things stylistically. I can hear that I was trying to kind of do it like two different guitar players playing against each other, and then vocally the same deal. Just trying. I mean, a lot of that stuff's just stuff you internalize. When you listen to like to me, I hear a lot of kind of Sly Stone, more kind of like soul thing, funk. But those are all based in the same stuff, and blues, he came out of all those musics. And, but yeah, it's just that same thing probably comes back to call and response from gospel church, really.
Right. It's great. And let's listen to this second verse, the live version. And I have a question I want to ask you about how you're singing it.
Okay.
across the Rio Grande.
Now, one of the things that has always interested me about the way you're doing it live now is that on the record, when you sing "Jesus Crossed the Rio Grande," it almost goes up whenever you sing that last line. Now you're almost singing it elegiacally, like it sounds sad when you
Yeah.
sing that last line to me. Is that a conscious decision on your part?
No, I just, it's interesting to watch, one of the things that I've done naturally is songs just kind of evolve. I don't know that there's necessarily a ton of intellectual thought put into the way it was. It's more like you get together with a group of people and the song's going to evolve. And I think singing something, you're just trying to channel this stuff that's, you're trying to basically get out of the way. And again, when people come at me and they're like, why don't you do it the way it was on the record? I'm always like, well, if I'm not present in the song where I'm digging on it and feeling excited about whatever it is and whatever version, whatever trip, I'm not going to be able to perform it worth a shit. It's just going to be real one dimensional. And it is interesting because actually I'm playing it more like the original version now. And I'm kind of back to kind of doing it more like that version. Just because I like to, it changes. I like approaching it from different angles. And around that time, it felt heavier. Like I think the way maybe I don't even know, maybe it was just kind of feeling, I wrote this tune in, 94, 95 and, was kind of imagining that the song would be really dated in 2016, 2018, 2021. And, here we are in more of an immigration battle and less tolerance for people and this weird demonization of these people that basically our country's built on. So maybe I was feeling the weight of that. I don't even know. I just kind of try to play this stuff and be emotional and just be present and sing it and play it with as much feeling as I can.
Well, that is one of the things that I've loved watching you throughout the years. Like I said, I basically have grown up with this song, listening to various, ways you've sang it and stuff like that. And this version, the way that you're doing here at Strange Brew, it just makes me sad. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way.
No.
Oh man, it kills me here because I know that third verse is coming and I know what's coming up.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like you're foreshadowing that by the way you're singing it.
I think you just, like I said, you just kind of evolved. I mean, the thing that I think is the most important thing, and I think I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, is, if you really want to, get magic, whether you're writing a song or performing something or writing a story or whatever, I think the real trick is about getting out of your own way and just kind of trying to create space for whatever, because, there's something bigger than us. I mean, we're vehicles for these things. And, because anybody that's ever created understands that, like, you can feel like you got nothing. And then you hit this thing, and it's typically about where your spirit and where your mind and spirit are. And then all of a sudden you're like a conduit. And and so I think, those things just evolve. I mean, you sing a song a million times, you're going to hopefully get closer and closer to the heart of it. When we first recorded this tune, this was a brand new song, and I mean, there's some of the phrasing and stuff that when I listen to it, I'm like, probably immediately wanted to change, because that's what happens when you record a song. You're just going, oh man, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. And that's what it is. I mean, you ask any artist about any record, if they're being honest, some people won't say that because they want to, oh yeah, no, or maybe some people really do love the thing, but I listen to my songs and there are a time and a place. And oftentimes I'll be like, oh man, I wish I'd done the vocal melody here. I wish I'd done this line here. The first line of Muddy Jesus, the phrasing, the ramshackle shack, the way I phrase that, you can tell I'd just written it. I just like a ramshackle shack or whatever. It just sounds kind of funny, which is, I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying I don't like it, but it's just how it is. So by the time you've sang it for, I mean, at this point, it's 21 years of singing that damn song. You better have gotten some kind of emotion in it, some different feelings.
That is shocking me that you say that, Ian, because in my head, that beginning line is as good as, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. Like, to me, That opening line sets the tone, man. It's so badass.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just telling you what it is to as an artist.
Sure.
If you're active with your songs and you really care about them, you're constantly evolving them. That's just the nature of that way of thinking.
Oh, I wish I could have you talk to my students, buddy. My writing students finish something and turn it in. It's done. No, revise it.
Yeah. Yep. I know.
Okay, we'll finish up with the studio.
Cool.
Jesus made his run on a hot and humid Friday night, but his vision, it was blinded by the bright of household lights. He never saw the shot that left him short of freedom's land, but the faithful, they're still waiting for the coming of the man. Wow.
I hate to cut it short right there, but there's almost a guitar scream in that. Is that intentional?
Yeah, I mean, just trying to use it's like a little bit of kind of automatopoeia to kind of create the feelings of what's happening in the scene.
So fantastic! It feels like someone's screaming whenever you hit that guitar lick.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't ask you about this earlier, but there's a sound that you're panning during the middle of this. Do you remember what that was?
I don't remember how we got that sound actually, and I was thinking about the same thing. Yeah, and it sounds kind of like almost like a monster.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like, I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan. It sounds like the TARDIS to me.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like whoo panning back and forth. It creates this otherworldly thing. It's fantastic.
Mother Mary said your time has come, for the river's wide but can be fought in one, for the very love of God and man. Oh, Jesus crossed the Rio Grande.
And then that outro is so great. Is that the guitar as it wobbles out? It's fantastic, Ian.
Right on.
Let's go to the live version. Then I have a couple other questions I want to ask you.
Cool.
close to real man.
So man, those solos there, face melting, Ian. Is that one of those things when you listen to them again? Are you happy with them, or because for me that is just flat
No,
out?
well, there's a lot of things. I mean, I love this era. You know, all the different bands that I've had are like, even though they're all me, they're very different entities. And one of the things that I always do is whoever my band is, that really influences the sound. And so like having that particular band, first of all, with the great harmony singers, so doing that kind of more that really cool stacked harmony on the chorus, I love that. And then I like you can tell, like I mean, I have so many influences, and that's the thing. Like I've always been a big fan of a lot of the psychedelic kind of British rock, the real heavy stuff, and I can hear with that groove that we are taking it to this more. I think one of the things I wanted to say that's interesting is, that original drum beat is so much Viegas's drum beat, my original drummer in the Ian Moore band. And one of the things that happened is when I had different drummers after him, people would really struggle. That's a hard drum beat, even though it seems just kind of whatever, because you've got to kind of keep it. It's almost like playing a train beat, but it's different. You got to keep it going, and it's fast and slow at the same time. And most drummers would really speed it up. So I think the initial thing of kind of changing the groove up was kind of getting it to where it was more of we just got it real heavier. And then around this phase, we got it to where it was slower and super heavy. And then that really allowed the guitar to kind of me to play the guitar differently than like when I do the version now. My solos are probably, again, more like the original version on the record. I mean, they've evolved, but because we're playing it faster, it's more of that da 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 da, So yeah, so totally getting into like more kind of pull offy kind of easterny stuff that you can do when the tempo's slower. If it's as fast as the original version, you just don't have the space to do that kind of. It would just be, I just wouldn't approach it that way. So a lot of it's the groove allows for the song to kind of come alive in a different way, and then playing, juxtaposing my trip with all these other people in the band and seeing what happens is kind of how we probably ended up with that later version.
And I know in the Christmas live stream that you did, you were doing a really cool thing where you were doing handwritten lyrics for folks
Oh yeah.
available in the shop. And I remember in the live stream, one of the things that you said was that handwriting those lyrics out made you kind of reevaluate the lyrics. After so many years, you're now having to actually pin them down as opposed to just singing them out.
Yeah.
When you go back and reevaluate, things like this, are there places like with the lyrics that you would reevaluate now? Or because for me, I just feel like this gets more and more contemporary every year.
Yeah, no, this song, I mean, it's funny because this tune, I like for a long time, I change like lines from certain tunes. I don't think I've ever changed any of the lyrics of Muddy Jesus. I think it just, I've changed the performance of it, I guess. Obviously the feel was very different around this time. And even the Via Satellite band, which I'd kind of say would be the band before this, was even a different version from this. But the lyrics on this one have always stayed the same. some tunes, like I've changed lyrics for a while, changed them back. I mean, I don't, most of the time I let a song be what it is, even if it's something that I'm not, maybe I realize I could have said it differently. I'm trying to think of like a good example. Cause the lyrics and the vibe reflect where you're at the time. And so kind of going to that space, I mean, even if you've grown a lot, I mean, I've done a lot of living since my first record, my first couple of records. I've done a lot of touring. I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of records. I've watched a lot of movies. I'd like to think I got a lot of new things in my head. So definitely some of the lyrics that, I was writing, some of the stuff, I feel like lyrically I've gotten a lot. I've definitely gotten some different vibes that I didn't have when I was first coming up.
And one of the things too that occurs to me as a writing instructor, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think this is the only song where there's not a first person perspective in it on that album. Is that, from your recollection, is that true? I look back at the lyrics and I'm pretty sure this is the only song where you don't have a I, me, my.
Yeah. I think definitely, yeah. I mean, that's probably an evolution in writing. I mean, when you first start writing, a lot of times you don't even consider a different perspective than the first person. It's just kind of the way you think because you're thinking about what you see. And I think as you become more of a writer, I mean, I'm going through, even more iterations. Like, I've always, if you listen to my content, a lot of my songs are pretty unique to me. Like there's not a lot of coverable tunes in my catalog. I mean, somebody could do it for fun, but like it's not like a Bob Dylan tune where, Adele can cover it, anyone can cover it. My tunes are pretty specific. And actually, if I would say anything about where I'm evolving to with where I'm at now is I'm starting to want to write tunes that are a little bit less specific because as a writer and really appreciating great writers like Neil Young and Dylan and stuff, you start to realize that part of the beauty of it is that they're writing these kind of broad songs that anybody can do. And that's something that I hadn't done much. And like, I'm sure you heard, cause I ended all my live streams and a lot of my acoustic shows with that tune Down the Line, which is
Yes.
2 or 3 years old. So a relatively new song. So that's a really different tune for me. It's a very classic tune. And my early brain would have gone, well, that's a little bit generic. And I'm like, now I'm like looking at it like, no, it's beautiful. It's universal and it speaks in this very broad way. And so as a writer, you go through these evolutions and fans may like one phase or like another phase, different fans. I've noticed in my career, different people attach themselves often to different phases. Some people like it all. Some people will be like, oh, your third record's your best one or your first record's your best one. And then there's other, and people, what you learn is that people are finding what they need. And really it's more about them than it's about you. So you just kind of got to do how you hear things and evolve your writing. And, for me as somebody that's written a lot of songs now, I'm basically just trying to impress myself. I feel like if it's something that I really like, hopefully other people will like it too, and people will relate to the integrity of it.
Well, I got to say, I've loved every iteration that I've seen of this, and like I said, one of the things that I love about this live version that you did at Strange Brew is just how almost elegiac it sounds and how sad it is leading up to that third verse, whereas the studio version is just, I mean, it is a badass rock song to me. But this one is almost like a Greek tragedy. In Greek tragedy, you've got the three unities: unity of action, place, and time. And you almost have that exact thing in this song.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about it from that.
And you lead up to that tragedy of action. Oh, it's heartbreaking to me the way you sing it in this one.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I never thought about it from that. Yeah, just because, it just evolved. But I mean, that's the point that I think, when you're, it's like anything else. You take in as many influence and as many things, and then you just try to forget about them all, and all that kind of stuff happens kind of organically, I think, as you grow. I mean, you just naturally will have an arc. Like I'll notice narrative arcs in my songs that I don't even think about, that I probably had to be much more intentional with when I was younger, but you just kind of do it naturally. You kind of, you naturally tie, your third verse will tie something else together. Your bridge will be an intro, like a little bit of an entry into something that maybe you don't fully expound upon, but it's like a peek into some. I mean, that's those are just things you just develop the more that you write, you know.
Sure.
And it's funny. I wanted to share with you. I mean, I listen to music all the time, and I love music, actively love music. But I've got to say, if I'm being honest, there hasn't been most of the music I like. I like a lot of old music, and so I've heard it all. So I'll put it on. I'll listen to like a Dylan record or an old Hendrix record, or old blues record, soul record, whatever country. But I don't really ever get excited about like a new release where I'm like, cannot wait. The Jonathan Franzen novel that just came out, I was so excited. I got it the day it came out. I haven't been that
Wow.
excited. Yeah, I think maybe for me, my love of music and became largely focused on a love of great lyrics, and then that kind of moved me into a love of great literature, which has moved me into this whole different thing that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I mean, I was reading it. I read a little bit every night, and pretty much every second I'm reading his writing, I'm like, this is brilliant. I mean, the guy is just literally like the best. He's the best writer alive, and there's just kind of exciting to dig into this stuff. And I'm always thinking like it's interesting that when you're like, I don't know that it necessarily translates. Songs and stories are so different, and how you do them. Songs have more to do with prose, typically, because you can't put as much content. But one thing that I really do like to do is I like to often have a much bigger backstory to a song that doesn't all make it into the song. And the song's almost like a Japanese line drawing where you just do the horse with a couple of things and you just have this much. And then, but you can infer that there's all this other stuff going on in the song that you don't actually hear, which is to me really interesting. That's what I like in a song as a listener.
So that's the Hemingway iceberg theory of writing.
Yep. I'm a
Yeah.
big Hemingway fan. I'm a big Faulkner fan. I really like short stories a lot, where you really distill the things down to like not a lot of stuff. And and songs are cool when they do that. I mean, and there's a really interesting thing between it's a great book to read, even though I don't know if you know who Jimmy Webb is, but Jimmy Webb's considered by a lot of people to be one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He wrote Galveston, Wichita Lineman, MacArthur Park. He has a book about songwriting, and it's interesting because he came out of this style that's way before me. He was kind of like the last of the Tin Pan Alley writers. So like it's like same style. I mean, different style, but same way as like Nat King Cole or Frank Sinatra. Those kind of Frank didn't really write his own songs, but like that style where it's very, very big, beautiful, just high concept stuff. So when he writes about writing he's very, like, I don't agree with a lot of the things that he says. Like he hates near rhymes, whereas I think a near rhyme is the best thing in the world in literature. Exact rhymes bug me for the most part, unless they're perfect. Sometimes like Dylan's really good at exact rhymes where it will seem like the perfect line. Most of the time when I do an exact rhyme, it feels like I'm trying to fit the lines around to make the thing rhyme. And when you do a near rhyme, it just often feels like you're more accurate in what you're trying to say. And he hates them because to him, it's the mark of lazy songwriting. I'm much more kind of a kid of the 70s and stuff. I grew up with all the singer-songwriters where it's much more esoteric, and we're coming out of the 60s and there's all this metaphysical shit that doesn't even necessarily make sense. But I like that stuff. But if it's too metaphysical, when you get over into like the Beck stuff and like, where it just feels like there's stringing random crap together, I'm not always as into that. I like that. I like that where you don't totally know what it is, but you still can hang your hat on a line. It still makes sense, So that's I think that's a really fun thing to think about is like, what do you want in a song? What do you want in a story? Do you want it to tell you exactly what it is? Do you want it to get you near the place where you're going to be? Do you want it to just tweak your mind? Like I was talking to a friend of mine and she's writing a book and it's kind of a fantasy book. And she's like, when I read, I want to disappear in the narrative.
Right.
When I read, I want to kind of disappear in the narrative, but to me, it's got to connect to real life or it just feels like BS to me. So everybody's got their own thing where we all sit and I like to have a little bit of magic in it that makes you feel like there's something beyond what we can see in front of us. But I still think that the world in front of us is beautiful and worth reporting on.
Yeah, there always in most of your songs there seems to be an element of hope, even if the song is not hopeful in and of itself. If that makes sense,
Oh, I love, yeah.
there seems to be that there is a hope out there, even if we're not feeling it at this moment.
I love that. Again, that's my favorite thing. I can't, nothing, what, that's not fair. I was going to say, there's nothing sadder than an empty, happy song. That's what I'll say. There's nothing that will make you sadder than bullshit happiness. Like there's a real beauty to reporting on what's really happening, but you got to have a little bit of faith. If it's just darkness, then that's all
Well,
I
you even in Muddy Jesus like that. The faithful, they're still waiting for the coming of their man. They're even though he is dead, it ends on a faithful line.
yeah, no, I have a lot of faith. That's the thing that's kept me going through everything. Is I'm always feel like there's always an opportunity. There's always an option. You're never out of them. But I mean, the natural thing of songwriting. I mean, I always tell people like it's much easier to write a dark song than it is to write a real light song, because when you feel real good, the last thing you want to do is sit around and write. You want to actually experience it and take it in.
Yeah.
So when you feel bad, you want to sit down and get it out. And so I think that's the tendency why a lot of people, just kind of, I don't know, different people have different things. I'm a big fan of gospel music, and gospel music's always about the struggle and the redemption. And so it's like there's no gospel without the struggle. There's nothing about, there's the gospel music will always say, well, believe in Jesus, he'll take care of, I might deliver that message a little differently, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's like if you're not going to look at the suffering in front of you, then how can you write anything honest? Because it is, and it's everywhere, but it doesn't mean that everything is dark and there's no hope.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess the last thing, I know we're running up against time here, Ian. I guess one of the last things I kind of wanted to ask you was what led to this being the opening track on Modern Day Folklore? Do you recall that at all?
Well, I think a lot of times, you just kind of, it felt like it should be the first song. I thought it was a real powerful tune. And, a lot of times for me, I like the first song to be a kind of a big statement that makes space for the rest of the record where it might go. And, there's some, like if we'd put something like Train Tracks or what are some of the other big rave ups, there's a couple other big ones like Barline, I don't think those would have set up the record as well as this does. This is kind of, it's more cerebral, but it's also rock. It's got a lot of that feel, and then it allows for songs like Society and Today and all the tunes that follow it. It really opens it up. It's got enough elements, almost like a thesis statement. Like you come out and you say the thing, and then that's going to filter through the rest of the record. So.
Well, and you mentioned that. I've got the Strange Days LP. This is your last LP. That's right. Is that right?
I did.
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, as an EP. You're right. Yeah.
Toronto was the EP, but Strange Days. You lead off that album with Strange Days, and that is such a tone-setting song. I know we're talking about this one tune, but boy, that song is fantastic, man. I really love that album, and it sets the tone for that whole album. Yeah,
for sure that one's an easy one. There's no other tune that could have been first on that record than that one.
No. And just a second ago, you mentioned Barline 99. In prepping for this, I didn't realize you had filmed a music video for that.
Yeah.
That video is insane, man.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun making it.
That I don't know if you've seen it before, but Alex Winter, he filmed a short film with the Butthole Surfers around that same time. I don't know if you've seen it. It's very similar to your video. It's so insane. It's awesome.
Well, I was trying to capture some of the craziness around the band. It started off with kind of an inside joke, but I really wanted to, the other side of it is I really wanted to capture kind of just the, things get weird, when your band is big, and and I was in a very different headspace than I was when I made my first record, just being on the road and a lot of people around us, a lot of people that were not necessarily, the people that you would have grown up with. And, so we would just try to capture that crazy energy,
You captured it. You captured it 100%. Maybe I'll throw a link up to it so folks can go check it out, because it is a great video from that time period. Well, in closing, Ian, this is one of those songs, like I said, I've lived with for 26 years, and I just love how it's evolved and how you've changed it up. And I am in for every version. Is there any closing thoughts you have on this? Anything we haven't covered that you would like to mention?
No, I mean, I think it's one of the things that I really, I mean, I guess just to me that I really enjoy that I've already kind of referenced a couple of times is I love having a career and allowing the tunes and the music. I mean, the journey is the deal, and I love being able to see them from different angles. And now that I've played for a decent amount of time, it's really cool to be able to really enjoy, like, I've always been about trying to get better. So sometimes it's hard for me to appreciate what I've done in the past because I just hear things like, oh, I want to do that differently. But, and I still have that mentality. I'm still trying to, work to become a better guitar player. And I worked really hard during the pandemic to expand my palette as a player. But, it's just cool to be able to reflect and go, oh, man, wow, we were really killing it at, this time. I'll watch live videos with different bands and be like, it's cool because even though you kind of go into it, you're the same person. When you flow with the people around you, you can come up with some really amazing stuff. And I'm really grateful for all the bands. I mean, I've got a great band. Again, it took me a little while to kind of coalesce this latest version of the band after that version with Matt and Travis and all them. But I feel like I got a real smoking band, and now we're like real. Kind of almost like I was when I very first started. It's different because I've done a lot of living, but I'm really playing a lot of kind of psychedelic blues rock, real heavy, real guitar oriented. And I just love reflecting back on the different phases and your perspective, and that's the best part of music to me.
And is that the band you're going to be playing with in December that we'll
Well,
see
the
in Kyle?
December you'll see in Kyle, but yeah, then the acoustic one's a different band because
Sure.
that's me and Warren and Bucka, and I don't know if we're gonna have a female singer with us this year or not, but just a total different take on the whole thing. Like again, I mean, like when I get together with Warren and Bucka, I got a fiddle player and I got a guy with accordion and piano, so like look through the songs, what tunes are going to work best for this iteration.
Well, I am so looking forward to it. And I mean, before I let you go, this album, the Modern Day Folklore, you don't own the rights to that anymore, do you? Or is that caught up in a weird rights hell type
I
situation?
don't own the rights to it, but I bootlegged my own record so that I could sell it at my shows because I haven't had these records available. So I made a couple of hundred copies of the CDs. Now people want the vinyl. I'm working on that. I'm hoping to do that in 2022. That's the vinyl pressing plants are way backed up,
Yeah.
and it's also really expensive. But I'd like to put out some vinyl of it too. So right now, I made CDs of all of my early ones so that people can get them because I got tired of having to explain this person after person. Why don't you sell your first two CDs? And be like, I can't. I don't have them. I don't own them. And so I finally I tried to go through the channels, and then I talked to enough of the people that work with me, and they're like, look, the labels, this is ridiculous. Just put it out yourself. You're making a couple of hundred CDs. If they're going to come after you for that, then have them come after you. They're going to look like total assholes, which they are.
Yeah.
So I just want the music to be available because I worked really hard on all that stuff, and especially right now, I'm playing so much of the material from the first two records. I want people to be able to get that stuff when they see the set.
Absolutely. And when people stream this, so like right now, this is on your channel on YouTube. Do you get the residuals from that, or are those views going to someone else? That's a damn shame if that's what happens.
I think the residuals for the ones I have on YouTube go to me. I'm actually not sure on that. I mean, it's not substantial enough. Digital royalties are so small, man, for that kind of stuff that you really would have to have millions of views to make an impact. I mean, to me, I just put that stuff up there so people can see it. And I'm a small operation. I had a lot of people working for me early in my career, so I'm doing a lot of different jobs. So I have to really consider where I want to spend my time. And I spent a good deal of it curating the Ian Moreland, but but I am still an artist that wants to continue to put out new records and stuff. So I kind of have to focus on, how much time do I want to spend on my YouTube channel? How much time do I want to spend on this? And there's constantly a laundry list of like, things I need to do and things I need to take care of. So I'm pretty happy with the YouTube channel. I mean, people are able to go through the records and hear the tunes. And hopefully most of that traffic is steered to my site, because when YouTube first was coming out, everybody had all my stuff on random sites, and it was just people were going all over the place to look at it. So
Yeah, the right stuff to that is so weird. One of our members is a blues musician here in town, and he has a couple of records. And we were doing a thing for one of our other episodes, and Todd played one of his own tunes, and we
they
got
pulled it off.
copyright. We got copyright striked, and Todd's like, "What the fuck? That's my song," and he
I
could
know.
not figure out who was striking it.
I know. Happens to me every time I do it. They do the same thing. And there's nobody to, there's no, it's a very common problem. It's super frustrating for independent artists that are curating their own stuff. The system is, it's a very unfriendly time for ironically for independent music, because the internet's created a way worse climate. It's harder to monetize your stuff. It's harder to control it. You get shit like this that happens, and then you try to reach out to YouTube and you don't
There's
hear
nobody.
Yeah, there's nobody. So it's a tricky time, and you just gotta, be savvy and just keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end it, Ian. I want to go ahead and thank you and remind
Thanks,
people
Mark.
you're doing writing workshops. You've got one that's sold out on the 15th through 17th. Are you going to do that in the future? Is that something that folks can look forward to?
I do it every year. We are trying to finalize the dates on next year. I was hoping to already have it out, but we're waiting for the venue that we do it to give us the dates, and then we'll put it back up. I've done it. This is I think this will be my 8th or 9th year in a row. So
Awesome. Well, you've got those. You've got the lyric sheets that are awesome. And if anybody wants to get me a Christmas present, Muddy Jesus, you've got 3 dates coming up here really soon: December 2nd, 10th, 11th. And if you've got anything else you want me to put up, I'll be glad to post it on our stuff.
I think that's pretty, up until the end of the year, that's pretty much it. And then 2022, I'm still kind of, as we come out of the pandemic and figure out how to reintegrate into live music and all that stuff, I'm trying to figure. I've got a lot of places I need to play, so I need to just kind of figure out how to do it without being so tired that my dog doesn't even know me anymore.
He's got to have somebody to play with. He's going to bite someone, Ian.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was
Thank you,
an
Mark.
absolute dream for me. I appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I will be in the audience on 2 of those shows, the Christmas and the Kyle. So I look
brother.
forward to it.
See you soon.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye.